It's June 14, 2023, and this is the council meeting for the Township of Muskoka Lakes. It is 2:35, I believe, or 2:34. 2:32. Got to fix that clock. It's 2:32, I understand, and I'm going to call this meeting to order at this time. For those of you who have been patiently waiting, thank you for your patience. We will try to move through this as expeditiously as we can. I can confirm that at the present time we have quorum. There are at least two that I'm aware of, councillors who are not present, and that would be Councillor Mazan and Councillor Burry. And I believe, doing a real quick scan, all other councillors are present either here in person or on Zoom. And I have a hand up already. Go ahead, Councillor Kent. You're muted.
Sorry, Mayor Kelley. I had alerted Cheryl the fact that I have to leave at 4 p.m. So you may have hopefully you don't have a quorum problem, and I am not available tomorrow.
Okay, we'll try to bring this in 5 minutes early for you.
Okay, sorry about that. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you. Okay, so we've done quorum. We've confirmed a couple of members are absent. I will acknowledge that the CAO, in this case, the acting CAO, who is also our treasurer, is here in replacement of our CAO, who's away on a different assignment right now. The clerk and other members of our senior management team are present and engaged with this meeting. Please join me in acknowledging that we are on lands traditionally occupied by Indigenous peoples. Indigenous peoples have cared for this territory for the benefit of future generations, and their stewardship throughout the ages is recognized. Quick public notice to read. Today's meeting is being live streamed and recorded on the Township of Muskoka Lakes website and YouTube channel. By participating in the open public meeting today, you are consenting to your image, your voice, and your comments being recorded and posted online. Previously, in the last week or two, we have invited public input on this agenda, just since last week when it was posted, through our site at TML public comment at muskokalakes.ca. We did receive one set of comments. A comment was received from Stacy Young regarding the dark sky bylaw. There is a supplementary agenda, which pursuant to 7.2.1 of our procedural bylaw 2019-079 was issued to add the following. Under 7D, a resolution read the District Housing Task Force. And under number 5A, Terry Ledger to attend re-item 9.B.3 ZBA-07/23 Blaisdell and Holland. I'm going to ask at this time whether any members of council present or on Zoom have a conflict of interest that they wish to disclose. Councillor Edwards.
Yes, I will excuse myself from 8F, that's the hall boards. And also 11B in closed session, which is also the hall boards.
And the reason for your excuse or recusal?
My wife has applied for it, and so I will not be voting on those. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Anyone else? I'm looking on Zoom. Councillor Roberts.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I would have to also excuse myself from the any discussions pertaining the hall boards in Milford Bay, as I am currently on the hall board and have submitted an application to continue on the hall board. So anything pertaining to Milford Bay.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, let me move to the agenda. We've gotten through. We're talking about invited delegations. There are two. And the first one, if he is available, is Mr. Daniel Bornstein, who's here to speak on dark sky. And if I'm not mistaken, there is a 5-minute cap on this portion. This is 5 minutes. 5 minutes.
He's in the waiting room, so he's in the meeting. We just need to turn in mic and camera.
Mr. Bornstein, if you can hear me, we need your mic and camera, please. And while you're doing that, I will also point out we have a bell to try to be kinder, gentler people, and we're going to ding you at 4.5. 4.5 minutes. We'll make a single sound so you know you're coming to the end, and we would ask you to wrap up.
All right, can you hear me?
We can hear you, sir.
All right, great.
You're
So-
not on camera, but you're aware of that, correct?
I am aware of that. I prefer my image not be broadcast around the world. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead. Thank you. We'll start the clock.
All right, thank you, Council. I believe it's a great start. The Dark Night Sky bylaw. And I did send some photographs in, if we could pull those up. So this is an indoor light that shines across the lake, and this would be compliant. Next photograph, please. So these are festive lights that are on for 6 months of the year. These would be compliant. As well as on the right, those are indoor lights that are stronger than the outdoor lights, which would be compliant. Next photo, please. Yeah, once again, those are the indoor lights shining that would be considered compliant under this proposed bylaw. And as we could see to the right, that is another property. And I believe the lights to the right are acceptable, whereas the lights to the left are unacceptable. But under this bylaw, those would be compliant. And I know that the Municipal Act does allow indoor lights to be regulated. Next photo, please. So these lights also would be compliant year-round. And the dock lights as well, those dock lights would be compliant, not only year-round, but 24 hours a day. I believe that any lights that are not being used should be turned off in respect of the dark night sky, the neighbors, and the wildlife. In addition, I believe the extra 3 years grandfathering is not needed, as we have had 10 years to become compliant. And I have spoken with a number of electricians, and they say 2 to 4 weeks, they could come to someone's house and change out their fixtures. 2 fixtures would be about $150 to change out. Unoccupied cottages have not been included in this bylaw as well. And I believe unoccupied cottages should not illuminate lights lights should be used once again when needed. Dock lights, path lights should not be allowed 24 hours a day at unoccupied cottages. Motion lights are always a good answer to lighting requirements. This bylaw comes close, but we're not there yet. So I would appreciate that we come back with a stronger bylaw and help to protect the dark night sky. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Bornstein? Councillor Bosenworth.
Thank you, Mr. Bornstein. The last picture you showed, which has a band of yellow lights across the shoreline, can you explain what those lights are and why you think they would be compliant?
I received an email from Mr. Kennedy just yesterday, and he believes those lights are compliant, as well as in the past, they would be compliant under the new bylaw, and he has allowed them under the old bylaw as well.
Supplemental, I mean. What kind of lights are they? Like, is it a path light? It looks like a. It's hard to
They're
figure
string
out from the
lights.
picture.
Yeah, I believe they're string lights.
Thank you.
Anyone else have a question? I have a question just to follow up on Mr. Bosenworth's comment. On your last answer, when you said that Mr. Kennedy suggested they would be compliant, did he actually visit and look at them in person?
He did not, but in the past, I believe he had looked at them and the owners had changed them. And he believes that now they would be compliant. They were compliant, but they were not compliant. They insist on having string lights. This one property of some sort, for whatever reason. So Mr. Kennedy did approach them and say, the string lights you have now are not compliant. So then they changed them to these lights, which I believe Mr. Kennedy said were compliant. And he said he had not, the recent photo I sent to him, he said he hadn't inspected them recently, but he believes those would be compliant. I could share that. I can look up the exact wording if you wish.
No, that's fine. Thank you for that. Are there any other questions from council? Councillor Nishikawa?
Oh, are we having this discussion later? Because I have questions for staff. Oh, thank you.
Yes, dark skies, isn't it?
Sorry, it's on the agenda, so we will have opportunity for discussion when it comes up. Any other questions? I'm going to thank you, Mr. Bornstein, for your comments, and I wish you, hope you have a good afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is Allie Brown from Our Muskoka, and I think she just left. There we are. Hello and welcome to both of you. You're on mute, Allie.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you.
Okay, perfect. Sorry, turning off so I can see when I was going to be called upon. Am I good to go?
You're good to go. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay,
Please,
thank
go ahead.
you. Good afternoon, council members. Allie Brown on behalf of Our Muskoka. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today on behalf of the Dark Sky Bylaw 2023-009. To start, I want to thank Rob Kennedy for addressing multiple concerns we had made to him in a previous submission. I also want to thank the committee members for discussing our points during multiple meetings that have taken place now regarding this bylaw. The extra time you allowed for more debriefing and meetings to take place to get the bylaw we have in front of us today was beneficial. We want to thank Rob, David, and the staff for the due diligence and follow-up they have given local businesses, lighting experts, and associations alike in the crafting of adjustments for the dark sky bylaw. The extra time gave opportunity for more discussion on certain provisions and how they would work in the community amongst the varying properties we have here in Muskoka. The main point today is regarding education. A plan to educate the community must be in place for this proposed bylaw to be understood and followed. Easy to understand, clear and concise wording, pamphlets or printouts, flyers, or even a video should be there for all types of learners and abilities. For the proposed dark sky bylaw to be followed and enforced, people need to be able to reference sections of the bylaw to what it is applicable for the situation, contractors, architects, designers, lighting installers, and companies, retailers, and homeowners alike. A suggestion we have is to utilize your mailings. Every one of your constituents receives 2 tax bills a year. Why not utilize that mailing in place of bylaw flyer in it with clear, concise information on them? Things that pertain information for visual learners to would be a bonus. I also want to add that the adjustment to June 1st, 2027 seems like a welcome time frame to get information and educational material out for ratepayers to know how to come into compliance with this particular bylaw. Thank you for your time and consideration of our suggestion.
Thank you very much, Shelley. Thoughtful, very good stuff. Anybody with questions for Ms. Brown? No? Seeing none? Comments? Nothing? Thank you, Ali. Appreciate it. Have a good day. Thank you.
You too. Good luck.
Bye. Okay, thank you. That's the invited delegations. Now there was, as I think I mentioned a little bit earlier, under section 5A, there is a public comment that we're expecting Terry Ledger to be available to speak to the Blasdale and Holland matter. Thank you. Welcome, Terry. Your camera, I think, is still off. I don't know if you can hear me, but. Can you hear me, Terry? But no.
Continue.
Terry, can you hear me? I'm not sure she can. Okay, there appears to be some connection issues with Ms. Ledger's connection. So the suggestion has been made, and I think it's a good one, that we defer her comments until we get to that matter further down the agenda. And hopefully in the meantime, we can sort some of this out. Okay, consent agenda is next. These are the rather routine matters that hopefully, unless someone feels the need, we can take care of all as one. I'm going to read the resolution and then we can have a discussion if it's necessary. Moved by Councillor Bosenmore, seconded by Councillor Zavitz. Be it resolved that the mayor and council adopt and enact the following minutes and recommendations contained in the June 14, 2023 consent agenda and direct staff to proceed with all necessary administrative actions. Number 1, May 10th, 2023, General and Finance Committee minutes and action items 1 through 9. Number 2, May 10th, 2023, 2023 council minutes. And number 3, May 11, 2023, Planning Committee minutes and action items 1 through 7. So that's the motion. Anybody with any comments? Councillor Nishikawa.
Sorry, just I wasn't sure if the Holland, the thing that Terry Ledger was going to speak on would have any effect on these particular minutes, or is it because it's coming back, we're going to have that opportunity?
Let's ask Director Pink if he is on the call, if he could help us with the answer to that question.
Good afternoon, Council, Your Worship. Sorry if I missed the question. If Councillor Nishikawa could please repeat.
We weren't able to hear from Terry Ledger earlier about the Holland application. And it was just wondering, I was wondering if we were delaying hearing from her, would that impact the minutes that we're passing? Or can it just be picked up with the discussion that's coming further in the agenda?
Through Your Worship, I don't believe it had any implications to the minutes of the meeting. I believe she was going to address some of the requests of Planning Committee, but I believe Mr. Soya and Mr. Sharp are well familiar with her request, and that can be discussed when the bylaw is on the agenda.
Thank you. Any other questions? I'm going to call a question. All in favor? Anyone opposed? That carries. Thank you. Okay, next up, we'll move on to the other items of business. Number 1 or number A, Canadian Volunteer Fire Services Association Municipal Long Service Medal. Denny Fox. I do. Sorry. You want me to read this? This is okay. I'm going to do this. How about this? The Canadian Volunteer Fire Service Association is a national organization that supports and strengthens Canada's volunteer firefighters through partnerships, advocacy, and recognition of this valuable community asset. One way that they recognize volunteer firefighters' commitment is in the Municipal Long Service Medal, awarded to volunteer firefighters only that have served a minimum of 30 years for a Canadian municipality. On Sunday, June 4, during a private ceremony, Dennis Fox was awarded the Long Service Medal, recognizing his incredible 55 years of service to the township of Muskoka Lakes. During Dennis's 55 years of service, he has attended over 356 fires, attained the rank of captain twice, and become such a staple at the ballast station that his name is on the fire pumper door. On behalf of council, I certainly want to thank you, Dennis, for your commitment to our community and for your 55 years of service. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay. That's absolutely incredible. 55. Incredible. All right, move down. The next one is consideration of a resolution to read the renaming of Muskoka Road 38 and an endorsement of road signage. And I assume that's Director Becking, although I may be wrong. Oh. Oh. Okay, I'm going to read the resolution. Moved by Councillor Edwards, seconded by Councillor Kent. Whereas council, pending agreement by the Ministry of Transportation, the MTO, formally adopted Kanagahaga Ioatache as the new name for Muskoka Road 38 through report LS-2023-08. And whereas the MTO has accepted the name change and provided design concepts for 2 northbound and 2 southbound signs to replace the existing signs along Highway 400. And whereas the MTO requires a council resolution to authorize the fabrication and installation of the new signs along Highway 400. Now therefore be it resolved that council endorse the sign designs as provided, and that staff be directed to continue working with the MTO to have these signs installed. And I would note that we've been joined by, is that Ryan Elby and Tina Kilborn? And I'm going to guess that Tina knows whether I really butchered that name or not. All right, anyone have any questions on this matter? No? Then I'll call this vote. All in favor? And any opposition? Anyone opposed? No, that carries. Thank you very much. Okay. Next up is a request from, what's the next up? Yeah, Milford Bay Community Club. And I forget who's speaking. I did see a handwritten letter on this one. I was a little unsure of what it actually meant. So hopefully someone is going to, oh, good, thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I received a letter from Christine Donald at the Milford Bay Community Club requesting that funds being held by the municipality be provided and sent to the community club for their use. In the absence of there being a hall board or such with authority to authorize through minutes that release of those funds, I was requesting or looking for confirmation from council for the permission to in fact release those funds. And Councillor Roberts probably has more information or more details with respect to the fund itself that these funds are or that the money is related to, but was just for confirmation from council with permission.
Thank you. Does anyone have any other input, comments, or questions? Yes, Councillor Nishikawa.
Sorry, I wasn't sure if we were going to hear from Councillor Roberts, but I'm assuming, I'm just opening this a little bit because historically hall boards had some pocket change. I'll just call it that. You know, they would fundraise and they would buy a coffee maker for the community center, those types of things. And then with change of policy, we had to turn those funds over to the municipality. And I think you probably have umpteen separate bank accounts set up and that sort of thing. And I think it is the direction that you would like the hall boards to take back these funds, if that's what I understood.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I've had conversations with all of you with respect to our 2023 budget. And during those discussions, I think I raised with each of you that notion that it would be my preference to empower the hall boards to have that money under some rules of control, because the money there is a fiduciary responsibility on behalf of council to ensure that it is used properly. But so that the hall boards don't need to come every single time they need, $1 or $2 or $20 or whatever it is for their needs. So this is part of a bigger conversation that will be revisited as we get closer to the 2024 budget discussion. But to your point, it was a point that I had raised during individual discussions on the budget follow up.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? I don't have a resolution. Councillor Edwards.
Yes, was the, let's see it now, the Pittsburgh Club, did they give it to the hall board? Because I know there was, I believe, an ATV bought for the fire station at one time. Was it for the fire station? Was it for the hall? The fund? Or just the general community?
Mr. Donaldson.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I don't have the history on this, and perhaps Councillor Roberts can help with this. Yes, thank you.
Councillor Roberts, do you have insight on that?
Yes, thank you. I can't give any background on whether the community club or community had bought a ATV. I can tell you that for decades, the Pittsburgh Fund has been donating money to or funds to the Milford Bay community to be used within the community, and that is at the sole discretion of the community. of Milford Bay. What we have in front of us is not a discussion pertaining to what we're going to do in the future. It pertains to, we had no hall board. The community club need the money for projects, and they request that this money be released, and that is the purpose. Any discussion going further on funds that are held by the hall board or whatever needs to involve all the hall board chairs. Well, I'll put that, type of thing in that discussion, so we're clear and have input to it. Okay, thank you. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you. Yes, I think it did. Anyone with other questions or comments? I do have a resolution now to read if we're ready for that. Let me just read it from here.
Sorry, before you begin.
Yep, go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, Worship. Perhaps I should excuse myself from this because I am the chair of the Milford Bay Community Center. So I'm going to not make that decision. I'm excusing myself.
Thank you very much. We will make sure that that gets noted. Thank you. Okay, resolution is moved by Councillor Roberts, seconded by Councillor Kent. Whereas the township holds funds in trust on behalf of the Milford Bay Community Club, and whereas a request has been received from the club to place the funds in trust with the Milford Bay Community Club. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the funds in the amount of $8,877.65 be transferred from the township to the Milford Bay Community Club with terms to be determined by and to the satisfaction of the Director of Financial Services / Treasurer. Discussion, all in favor? That carries. Thank you very much. Sorry, let me turn the mic on again. We'll get to the senior management reports. I think the first 3 or 4 are Director Becking, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, sorry, there's another, excuse me one moment. There's another item not on my agenda. Oh, all right. I have a resolution to read regarding the District Housing Task Force. Moved by Councillor Nishikawa, seconded by Councillor Edwards. Whereas the District of Muskoka has requested the appointment of a council representative to the District Housing Task Force. Now, therefore, be it resolved that Councillor Ruth Nishikawa be hereby appointed to represent the Township of Muskoka Lakes. Any questions? Any comments? All in favor? Anyone opposed? That carries. Thank you very much. Okay, now we'll move on to the management reports. First one is on an asbestos survey of township buildings.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll be brief. There's been a recent change in accounting requirements that municipalities are now required to include on their financial statements any liabilities with respect to any contaminants that might be involved in the decommissioning of our facilities. In accordance with township policy, proposals were called and a significant number were received. Staff are recommending that we proceed with the project, notwithstanding the fact that it was not included in the department's budget, and that and it be awarded to Buller Crichton Environmental Inc. in the amount of $39,950, and that the 2023 capital budget be increased by $45,000 to cover off the expenditure. I would point out to council that notwithstanding the fact this is a sizable amount of money, it is, in my experience, common practice to have a knowledge of what what is in our buildings. And it helps us with the asset management process, as well as obviously there are health and safety related matters that need to be addressed. So with that, the staff recommendation is to proceed as indicated.
Thank you, sir. And can I just get one clarification? Did you say that it impacted the budget by 25,000 or 45,000?
I'm recommending, your worship, 45,000.
I missed
There's
it.
some uncertainty about how many physical tests of the samples will have to be taken. And I'm allowing a little bit of a cushion for that.
No, that's great. Thank you. I just thought I heard 25. Okay, I have a resolution moved by Councillor Penn, seconded by Councillor McIntyre. Be it resolved that council award contract RFP 2023 the Buller Crichton Environmental Inc. in the amount of $39,950, taxes excluded. And that the 2023 capital budget be increased by $45,000 for the addition of a project related to the completion of an asbestos survey of township facilities to be funded from the studies and reviews reserve. And that the Director of Public Works be authorized to execute the necessary documents to proceed with the work of this proposal. Any questions, Councillor Bosenworth?
Director Becking, could you explain the huge divergence in the quotes that we got? Presumably they all got the same request, so I'm just quite astonished by it.
The proposals, the final cost of the proposals will be driven by the number of samples that are going to have to be taken and the laboratory testing that will be required. We provided to all bidders the number of buildings, the area of the buildings, the age of the buildings, and the general details relative to their construction. We indicated to them that on the basis of that information, they were to estimate the number of samples that would be taken and cost it and include those costs in their proposal. We did allow for additional depending on the actual finds, but we had to have some common basis. Some consultants took a far more risk-averse approach than the others.
Thank you. Any other questions? Then I will call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? That carries. Thank you very much. Mr. Becking, you're on again, please, for Ross Hamill Road.
Thank you, Your Worship. Would you wish me to address all three, or do you want me to do them individually?
Actually, if you could do all three, that would streamline the process. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Your Worship. The next three items on the agenda relate to housekeeping matters. As council is aware, from time to time, we do come across roads where we do not own the land under which the road exists. And through either the development process or through philanthropic processes, we have an opportunity to correct the issue without excessive cost to the municipality. In all three instances, the parties have had an amicable agreement as to the property involved and the transfer that should take place. And the three matters are before you to affect those changes.
And all three are substantially similar, and all three are going to be dealt with when we get the bylaws. There's no particular resolution right now.
Precisely.
Thank you. Okay, that's great. That takes us to, if I'm counting correctly, item E.
Thank you, Worship. One final matter for me for today. As you've no doubt noticed, we're in the midst of doing the next phase of the renovations to this building to accommodate staff. Work is underway and it was included in this year's capital budget. Unfortunately, we will not be able to accommodate all of the staff that will be going into that space because of some changes that occurred as a result of the budget. So as to provide sufficient furniture for all of the staff that will be going into that space, it's necessary to upgrade it to a modular system similar to what you've seen elsewhere in the building. So staff are looking for permission to proceed with the purchase of that furniture in the amount of $32,160. I can report that we will be able to accommodate that purchase within the existing capital budget. Thanks in part to some savings with respect to repairs to the Port Carling arena roof. And so we're requesting your permission to transfer funds from that project in order to cover off the additional expenditure.
Thank you. I will read the resolution. Unless anyone has a question right now for Director Becky, I'll read the resolution. Moved by Councillor Nishikawa, seconded by Councillor Edwards. Be it resolved that staff be authorized to proceed with a sole source purchase agreement with Office Central Interiors in the amount of $32,160 plus applicable HST for the provision of new office furniture for the bylaw/economic development area to be compatible with the furniture in the balance of the office. And that the 2023 capital budget for project number 23140 municipal office bylaw office renovation project be increased by $32,500 to $64,000. And that the project number 23024 Port Carling West Side Flat Roof Project budget be reduced by $32,500 to $57,500. Any questions? All in favor? That carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Council.
All right, the next one up, I believe, is our clerk. If you could walk us through. Yeah, the hall board appointments. Sorry, I'm on the right page. Go ahead.
Excuse me, are you doing the hall boards now?
We're doing the hall boards now.
Because if something comes out of closed session with the hall boards, if that could affect this.
I'm sorry.
If something comes out of closed session regarding the hall boards,
No,
it could affect this. But that's fine, like I'll just take my leave now, but.
Yeah, I'm going to ask our clerk to speak to that.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Kelley. The report is in front of you, and this report is to appoint the councillors to each of the hall boards. The closed session report outlines the individual names of those who are being appointed. You do not have to go into closed session, but we put them in closed session in case there is discussion. If you do want to have discussion on that matter, I would recommend holding off and passing this later in the agenda because this resolution makes that confidential memo public. So if you do want to specifically talk about somebody, you can speak now and say, let's have a closed session discussion about it. But if you're not looking to discuss any names for a specific matter, then you can proceed at this time and we don't have to discuss it in closed session. It's optional.
So we're at the fork in the road. If somebody has something they want to add, we'll find out if anybody doesn't, is what I'm trying to do. Does anybody need or feel the need to have a discussion about any of these particular individuals that will put us into closed before we deal with this? I see none, then let's move forward with this. Thank you. I'll read a resolution moved by Councillor McIntyre, seconded by Councillor Kent. Be it resolved that council members be appointed to community center hall boards as detailed in report LS-2023-18. And that citizen members be appointed to community center hall boards as detailed in confidential memo LS-2023-19. And that confidential memo LS-2023-19 be hereby made public. Anybody have any discussion? Then all in favor? And anyone opposed? That carries. Thank you very much. You can take that off the closed session list. Okay, we're moving on to bylaws. Man, I hope you like the sound of my voice. We're going to be reading a lot of stuff here. Just wait till the clerk returns.
Maybe we could get an AI voice to read them for us.
Okay, so welcome back. And do we have a question, Councillor Nishikawa? No, okay. All right, we're going to just start working through these, first of all, general and other planning bylaws. I'm going to read them. And then we'll see if anybody has any input before we call the vote. Moved by Councillor Roberts, seconded by Councillor Zavitz. Be it resolved that the original shore road allowance on Lake Muskoka, lying in front of concession 10, lot 27, Monk, designated as parts 2 and 6 on plan 35R-26964- Evanoff roll 9-11-066 be declared as surplus land. And that the clerk is hereby instructed to dispose of the said property pursuant to sections 8, 9, and 11 of the Municipal Act 2001. And that bylaw 2023-056 to stop up, close, and convey that portion of original shore road allowance designated as parts 2 and 6 on 35R-6964 be given 3 readings and passed. Any questions? All in favor? That carries. Thank you very much. One more here. Another resolution moved by Councillor Kent, seconded by Councillor Roberts. Be it resolved that the original shore road allowance on Skeleton Lake, lying in front of concession 1, lot 12, Cardwell, designated as parts 1, 3, and 5 on plan 35R-26957- Irvin Johnson roll 1-2-032 be declared as surplus land, and that the clerk is hereby instructed to dispose of the said property pursuant to sections 8, 9, and 11 of the Municipal Act 2001, and that bylaw 2023-057 to stop up, close, and convey that portion of original shore road allowance designated as parts 1, 3, and 5 on 35R-26957 be given 3 readings and passed. Any questions, comments? All in favor? That carries. Okay, we're moving along. Moved by Councillor Edwards, seconded by Councillor Nishikawa. Be it resolved that the original shore road allowance on Lake Rosso, lying in front of concession 5, lot 28, Watt, designated as part 1 on plan 35R-27078- Lily R Holdings Inc. roll 2-9-051 be declared as surplus land, and that the clerk is hereby instructed to dispose of the said property pursuant to sections 8, 9, and 11 of the Municipal Act 2001. And that bylaw 2023-060 to stop up, close, and convey that portion of original shore road allowance designated as part 1 on 35R-27078 be given 3 readings and passed. Any questions? All in favor? Thank you very much. Putting a lot of people in Muskoka in a coma with this. Carry on. Next one. Okay, moved by Councillor Kent, seconded by Councillor McIntyre. Be it resolved that bylaw 2023-067, being a bylaw for the purpose of acquiring part of lot 121, registered plan number 19, geographic township of Medora, now in the township of Muskoka Lakes, in the district municipality of Muskoka, designated as part 1 on plan 35R-27012, identified as part of PIN 48154-1183 (LT), and to establish said part 1 on plan 35R-27012 as part of the municipal highway system, be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. All in favor?
Oh, I have a question or comment.
Yes.
In point 4, now therefore that the council in that whole section on there, there's a phrase in there I don't understand, that the mayor and the clerk and deputy clerk or acting clerk be and they are hereby. I don't think that's right English. And is that part of what we're passing? It's in
Not in
the
here.
first line of the last paragraph, and it's repeated in about 3 different things. So right, it says that the acting directly clerk or acting clerk, comma, B, and they are hereby authorized. Doesn't make sense.
That's my humble opinion. It's actually proper
Is
legal
it?
jargon for an either or of an individual or a group doing something.
Forgive me.
You be empowered or they are empowered. I think.
Forgive me.
I'm rusty. You know.
I understand.
There you go. Okay, we'll go back to calling the vote. All in favor? Thank you. B and they, that carried. Okay. Wait, there's more. Okay. Moved by Councillor Bosenworth, seconded by Councillor Nishikawa. Be it resolved that bylaw 2023-062, being a bylaw to appoint a building inspector for the enforcement of the Building Code Act and the building bylaw of the Corporation of the Township of Muskoka Lakes, be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. Any questions? All in favor? That carries. Thank you. Next, moved by Councillor Zabit, seconded by Councillor Roberts. Be it resolved that bylaw 2023-063, being a bylaw to appoint a building inspector for the enforcement of the Building Code Act and the building bylaw of the Corporation of the Township of Muskoka Lakes, be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. Any comments? All in favor? That carries. Thank you very much. Next one, moved by Councillor Nishikawa, seconded by Councillor McIntyre. Be it resolved that bylaw 2023-064, being a bylaw to appoint a building inspector for the enforcement of the Building Code Act and the building bylaw of the Corporation of the Township of Muskoka Lakes, be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. Any questions on this one? All in favor? That carries. Thank you very much. Next one, moved by Councillor Edwards, seconded by Councillor Kent. Be it resolved that bylaw 2023-065, being a bylaw to assign a property standards officer for the Corporation of the Township of Muskoka Lakes, be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. All in favor? That carries. Thank you very much. Moved by Councillor Edwards, seconded by Councillor Bosenworth. Be it resolved that bylaw 2023-066, being a bylaw to assign a property standards officer for the Corporation of the Township of Muskoka Lakes, be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. All in favor? That carries. Thank you very much. Oh, Councillor Kent.
Just so I understand, all these appointments, are these just normal course, day-to-day hiring appointments that the township is making?
I'm going to suggest they are. I have my own idea about what they are, but actually Director Pink has joined us and he will know.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you. Yes, these are standard appointment bylaws. Building inspectors must be appointed by bylaw. These are recent hires.
So Director Pink, there were two new bylaw officers. That's a lot, isn't it? Out of 7 or however many we have? Or is that typical of just a seasonal hire or something?
We had 2 vacancies and we hired at the same time. And then you'll notice they're both property standards officers must be appointed by bylaw as well. So that's why you see.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director Pink. And moving along, next one is moved by Councillor Bosenworth, seconded by Councillor Zavitz. Be it resolved that bylaw 2023-069, being a bylaw for the purpose of acquiring part of Lot 9, Concession 8, Geographic Township of Watt, now in the Township of Muskoka Lakes in the District Municipality of Muskoka, designated as Part 1 on Plan 35R-27100, identified as part of PIN 48134-0425 (LT) and to establish said Part 1 on Plan 35R-27100 as part of the municipal highway system, be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. Any feedback, any questions? All in favor? Thank you. That carries. Okay. Next one, moved by Councillor Zavetz, seconded by Councillor Roberts. Be it resolved that bylaw 2023-070, being a bylaw for the purpose of establishing part of lots 8 and 9, concession 7, geographic township of Watt, now in the Township of Muskoka Lakes in the District Municipality of Muskoka, designated as Part 1 and Part 2 on Plan 35R-26464, identified as part of PIN 48134-0154 (LT) and all of PIN 48134-0409 (LT) as part of the municipal highway system, be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. Any questions or comments? All in favor? That carries. Thank you. All right, the next one, just before I read it, is the dark sky. And I see we've been joined by Mr. Kennedy. I will read the resolution and then we can have any questions or discussion, unless you want to, sorry, you go ahead.
Sorry, Your Worship. Just a quick verbal introduction to this. Just so council is aware, we had a legal review done of the bylaw before this came to council from the township's legal representation. As a result of that, there were no legal issues that were noted on response. However, there were a few minor administrative changes that were made along with the addition of the June 1st, 2027 date into the bylaw. So thank you.
Thank you. That's very helpful. Thank you very much. Okay, I will, unless any questions for Mr. Kennedy? No? Then I'm going to read the resolution moved by Council. Sorry.
Mr. Kennedy, with respect to seasonal lighting, is it subject to the curfew?
Through the chair, no, it's not.
Okay, any other questions before I read? I'm going to read the resolution. Oh, Councillor Edwards.
Yes, Mr. Kennedy, festive lighting. Is there a time limit on that, like Christmas lights? Can they be up all year round or just a 2-week?
Through the chair, we decided not to put a time limit on festive lighting simply because there are quite a lot of ethnicities and celebrations throughout the year, not only just Christmas, you got Halloween, Diwali, Canada Day for that matter. So we decided not to put any type of restriction on the amount of time that these can be up.
Okay, thank you.
I'm going to call on Councillor Kent for a question and then Councillor Roberts.
With regard to the festive lighting question, I would think that perhaps you could eliminate that problem by putting a 2-week period on each time that they put them up for a separate festive event. So I could have 2 weeks for Christmas and then I could have 2 weeks for Diwali, but I wouldn't be able to have them up the entire time in between. It's a suggested change because I do find the concept, and there have been too many pictures of it, of Christmas, purple lights that are up all year long. That's just not appropriate. And maybe that's the only way to get at it. Was there a reason why we didn't consider that kind of a time frame limitation?
Kennedy.
Through the chair, I think the same answer to Councillor Edwards is what I would answer to Councillor Kent in this situation. It's not something that we felt as staff that we needed to regulate in as far as time goes. So that's why it wasn't put in there. We had numerous community involvement and community comments relating to festive lights, and frankly, 2 weeks is not something that we ever heard from the community. A lot of times the community was desiring, and mainly around Christmas time, was a lot of people put their lights up in and around November, and they keep them up until sometimes at the end of January the following year, or even February.
Thank you. Anyone else with a question? Councillor Bosemuth?
Well, if we are we making comments here? Because I have some comments, but they are related to festive lightings.
If you just, I forgot that I was going to go back to Councillor Roberts with a question. Yes.
Thank you. Yes, I want to discuss festive lighting. But I do have a question. Mr. Bornstein came up forward. He presented his 3 or 4 pictures, and I want you to comment on those and why. And he did one specific thing he said is that the municipality does have the ability to, according to the delegate, that we can control interior lighting and try to curtail those lights that are in the picture. So I guess if the question is, can the municipality control or manage or interior lighting?
Mr. Kennedy.
Through the chair, the municipal act does state that we can regulate interior lighting. However, through discussions with many community members groups, and even trying to figure out how to correctly regulate something like that would be virtually impossible. We do need to remember that the municipal act and our powers of entry and rights to entry onto properties do not allow us to go into buildings. So regardless if there was an interior light, if there was a section to say, I don't even know what in regards to interior light, we do have the section in regards to nuisance lighting for interior lights. But aside from that, being able to go into someone's dwelling and tell them that they need to change lights for whatever reason, I don't think is something that the municipality should be getting into as far as regulation. We can certainly, through our education program going forward, we can certainly put some effort into educating people on interior lights and ensuring that, again, they're only used when they're necessary. But at this time, I don't think it's necessary for us to be putting in any type of provision for interior lights aside from that nuisance lighting section that we have already.
Thank you. And I'll probably bring that up under discussion. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Councillor Nishikawa?
Thank you. I was waiting for the discussion, but I guess I have to ask the question. I'm still a little concerned about, us delaying this another to 2027, and I'm not sure where that magic number came from. And in fact, I just want to have an understanding why that number was chosen, because past councils have had this conversation. They've made a decision, they've made a direction, and we're just delaying that direction. And I'm trying to understand where that answer came from, that now this is the appropriate time frame, when past council had thought they put an appropriate time frame, and in fact it was multiple years. And I'm just not sure who gets, I guess we're determining it, but I'm not sure who landed on this number.
Through the chair, if you recall at the planning committee last month, we discussed this at length, and it was recognized that the municipality hasn't done any type of education in regards to the actual date of January 1st, 2024. And we felt that at this point, either it be extended or we eliminate it altogether. Actually, the previous version at the planning committee didn't even have, if you will, the drop dead date. That was added during the committee meeting. And I'll leave it at that.
I forget who have got, Councillor McIntyre. I thought I had somebody waiting.
When we had, excuse me, when we had those discussions, 2026 was the date that kept coming up, which I could sort of reconcile myself to, but we're now a year and a half later. And so I'm asking the same question.
I'm going to ask the clerk to speak to that one issue.
Thank you, through you. The motion that, or the recommendation that was passed at planning did say that the proposed dark sky bylaw motion be amended, passed and amended as follows. It was with the addition under section 4.4 of the bylaw to include notwithstanding clause for a full compliance date of June 1st, 2027. So that was the resolution that was passed at planning last month.
Any other questions? Let me read the resolution and then we can have a discussion. Moved by Councillor Edwards, seconded by Councillor Nishikawa. Be it resolved that bylaw 2023-009, being a bylaw to regulate outdoor and indoor illumination to ensure responsible lighting, the reduction of light pollution, and the conservation of the environment and the night sky, be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. So, anybody want to start? Councillor Bosenworth, thank you. We're first. Go ahead.
A couple of points. I would like the resolution to read first and second time only, because I think there may be a need to delay to the third. I'm not quite sure how we make that happen, but I have two concerns. One is that we put an exclusion for 1 hour after the curfew on the lakeshore properties. I think that has just effectively moved the curfew from midnight till 1 in the morning. And I would suggest we just remove that. I think the bylaw officers have lots of latitude for allowing people to have lights on after midnight if they're out in the movies or coming home late, which so I remember was the intent of that extra hour. And then the second one is to do with festive lightings. I do think we need to put some restriction on times. Otherwise, I think we're going to end up with Christmas lights hung up on trees going up people's pathway that'll be allowed to be on all night long. And there are numerous ways that people can classify strings of lights as festive lightings, and we'll be using that as an excuse to light up their property all night long, all year long. And I'd like that one. I don't know the answer to that one. I think Councillor Kent had a good idea. We could put some timeframes on for no more than a month at a time. And perhaps we should put them under the curfew along the lake on the lakeshore, on the lakeshore property. So even if you have them, they have to be off at midnight. So those are the two concerns I have. I did have another concern that should have legal review, but we've already done that. So thank you very much, Mr. Kennedy. Those are the two concerns I have. Thank you.
You had a response, I think.
Yeah, through the chair, I think the difficulty with putting a time frame on these festive lights is the enforcement of this. So what's going to happen is someone is going to put up their festive lights and say they go over a 2-week period. We aren't, as officers, we're not going to be aware of what exact date that they actually put them up. So the clock would start at the time that we go to the property and confirm that they're actually up. Regardless if we get photos before we've attended the property, the clock for us is going to start on the day that we do our investigation and attend the property. So effectively, if we're doing a 1 month, a 2 week, a 3 week period, you're essentially going to double it, because that 3 week or 2 week or 1 month period will start on the day that we actually attend the property, because that's where we're gating our evidence from.
Councillor Bosenworth, follow up.
Then how will you be able to inform or stop people using festive lighting all year longs in the manners I described?
Through the chair, you probably won't be able to. That's just the reality.
I think Councillor Roberts was ahead of you. Go ahead, Councillor Roberts.
Hey, I think that festive lighting should fall into all our other regulations for lighting, and there should be a curfew on it. If we can't enforce it, at least we should do that at the very minimum. And also, I'd like nuisance lighting. And this is after, we've considered this a lot, but now I've had discussions in the last month. I think the pictures that were shown earlier are absolutely unacceptable. I don't think we would have to go inside a property to say those are nuisance lighting. I mean, it's obvious just what we're saying. So I think we must do something about that type of nuisance lighting. And I want to know what we can do. Should we defer this? Can we come back or on that nuisance lighting? So I guess a question would be is it enforceable if a picture is taken that would say it's nuisance lighting. We can do that. We can get constituents to report a noise bylaw or offense the next day. Why can't they just take their pictures?
I'm just going to make a comment, and it's, I don't know if it's my turn or not, but one of the issues with photographic evidence that we saw today is we have no idea where they are. Mr. Bornstein didn't specify a location or a neighborhood. They could have been taken anywhere. Didn't specify that they hadn't been digitally enhanced. My humble opinion, if we were really going to prosecute these things effectively, it's going to require a hands-on or eyes-on attendance to actually witness the offense. I just frankly don't understand how you could base. And the point that I'm really going to get to is that the success of this bylaw is going to depend 98% on moral suasion, education, on lots of communication, on neighborhood peer pressure, if you will. I don't know how many waterfront properties there are in the township of Muskoka Lakes, but even if 10% of them are offside with this bylaw at any given moment, we're about 9,000 bylaw enforcement officers short of what we would need to go out and effectively make the job happen. This will set the standard and set the guideline for appropriate behavior. And I think it will be over time, the influence of leadership in the community, of cottage associations, neighborhood associations, neighbors, education, communication, to make this seem like an appropriate way to live your life. And only as a fallback would it be something that we would have the capacity to actually do hands-on survey and enforcement. I know that that's not what anybody wants to hear, but the reality of the fact is, the other reality we have to face up to is a sense of prioritization among the resources we have on bylaw enforcement. If other offenses are higher risk or more egregious, they're going to get the attention that this won't get. So we need to have the baseline to establish the acceptable behavior. We need to work really hard, starting with us as community leaders, to make sure that there's lots of communication and lots of work done to make people want to comply. Because getting people to comply by, I don't like the word force, but by enforcement is probably the single largest challenge we have across all of our bylaws that need enforcement. That's just my 2 cents. And I think it's I hope it's just a pragmatic sort of practical way to look at it, but that's how I feel.
May I have a comment, Your Worship?
You sure can. Absolutely.
Thank you. It's just that if I guess it's on that whole nuisance type of lighting that we see there, as I guess I understand it could that be deemed a nuisance? And if we have a person that totally says, I don't care, I'm having these lights on, that we actually could take some action. So I guess, is it already in our books that if we wanted to enforce that nuisance lighting, could we? Or if we,
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, we could hire a special officer to sit out there at night and get the evidence on cases where they're beyond reasonable, for the neighborhood. That's what I'm asking.
And I'm going to sort of toss that to Mr. Kennedy. I mean, quite frankly, I don't know what the definition of nuisance lighting. Oh, I know what it is, but I don't know if we can extend it or if it has to be some kind of specifically targeted nuisance, or if it can be just generally a nuisance. But I'll leave that to you.
Through the chair, the section in regards to nuisance lighting is at the officer's discretion. So as I said in the planning committee meeting last month, that section will be dealt with on a case-by-case basis, where if we receive a complaint and we go to the property and we determine that any said light has been purposefully put on the inside of a building specifically to point directly over at a different property or a neighboring property, that is where we would deal with that section. That's the only time we would deal with that section. I think we're going down a very, very slippery slope if we are going to include just simply regular light fixtures inside someone's house as nuisance lighting. I understand the issue. And yes, interior lights may be bright, but if you're expecting staff to go out at midnight to take a look at these lights from across the bay, and they're just simply regular light fixtures, I just don't think that that's something that the municipality should be getting into at this point. And to continue on to Mayor Kelley's point that he made, I want to stress the fact that the current bylaw that we have in effect right now, many of those sections are written, in lack of a better term, like a policy. They aren't a bylaw. The only section, if you go through that current bylaw right now, the only section that we would be able to actually charge someone under or force someone to change something is through section 12 when they fail to comply with an order. Everything else is realistically more or less a guideline. So this bylaw, and I'm going to steal Director Pink's words, is moving the bar forward. And I think this is a big jump forward, frankly, with this bylaw, because now we are getting into actual legal wording. We have provisions that are in the bylaw that we can actually enforce and we can actually go forward with at properties when we have complaints. So while I can appreciate that there may be some different outlooks on nuisance lighting and interior lighting, I think this bylaw does move that bar forward. And going forward and in the future, if there are additional concerns that come up, council is able to amend that bylaw however they please.
Your worship, my last point on this.
Sure, go ahead.
All right, this is not regular lighting in the pictures we saw. And I think that I'm not asking to change the bylaw. I think, I think that I guess we change our rules of engagement if needed with bylaw. And I would expect someone from bylaw to go out at night and take the photograph. And if we have to hire a special constable, we could do that as well on unique situations deemed to be unique by bylaw. That's my last comment on it.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Councillor Bosenworth and Councillor Nishikawa.
I would like to suggest two changes to this bylaw before we approve it. And one is that based on the discussion around festive lighting, I would just like festive lighting to be included under the curfew on the lakefront properties. That would certainly resolve most of the issues, I think, where we're going to have the abuse. And the second one is just to ensure that we have a curfew that stops at midnight, remove the clause that has an exclusion for 1 hour of use after midnight.
Thank you for that. Anyone any other comments, Councillor Edwards? Oh, I'm sorry. Time out. My bad. Messed that up. Councillor Nishikawa had already identified you. You got to wave a flag.
No, I'm sorry. I can't see this moving forward today. And I mean, I've been involved in this dark sky thing from the beginning. And in fact, since 95, long before I was a councillor. And it's very interesting to me to hear that the rest of council believes that we have not educated people on this, yet we've talked about it for years and years and years. And in fact, other municipalities modeled dark sky, like if I use Gravenhurst as an example, they modeled their dark sky bylaw based on what we did. Like they jumped in, look at the great thing Muskoka Lakes is doing. And in fact, it feels like everything's been like, it doesn't feel like we're moving forward in a productive way. I totally disagree with what I'd heard about the festive lighting and even the discretion part really concerned me. That always concerns me when I hear that it's one person's discretion over another situation. I just don't feel that this is moving forward. And since now we're putting everything off until 2027, and yet again, we're not actually putting anything in place that we, it really concerns me. So I mean, I know how I'll be voting, but I would suggest that this does not move forward today.
Mr. Kennedy?
Through the chair, just to Ruth's point about the other municipalities modeling the former bylaw, I've actually already received note from other municipalities outside of Muskoka and within this new draft bylaw once this gets passed. So.
Thank you for that. Other comments or questions? Have I left anybody hanging? Councillor Zavitz?
Thank you. Through you, and not to be argumentative with my good councillor, my fellow councillor, but my experience and discussion with many of our tax-paying residents is they do not have a clue about this. They don't even understand it. So what we're doing is we're actually, to Rob's earlier point, we are actually creating a new way forward. And I do believe that this is very progressive. And I don't see that there's any reason for us to take that. It's not a baby step, it's a fairly large step, but this can be a work in progress. I keep hearing continuous improvement around here. To me, that's what this is. And again, with all due respect, I do think that the public needs to start their education process with us, this long path. And I, for one, will be supporting it and voting for it to move forward so we can begin that education process. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Anyone else? Councillor Edwards?
Yes, the grandfathering, I'd like to see it taken in with 3.7, community residential, waterfront residential, and water body open space. Again, there's people in rural areas. It's dark. When people are driving the roads, it's nice to see a light here and there. Also, for safety and that going downstairs or anything else like that, some of these dark sky lighting fixtures will not illuminate far enough. And that's why I have been pushing for that. And I can't see, we just had Barb Richmond here today about a lot of these people are poor. They have to pay $200-300 a light to change all their lights in rural, because that's where they're living. And that, a lot of them. And that's so, and I can tell you, you can get more light pollution from festive lightings in around the lake coming up than going down the country road. And I think it's not fair to the people who are there. It doesn't reflect, it doesn't come off water. I've talked to some people have farms and they said, no, like we have to have lights on so we can see. And that's why I'm saying it should only be those areas that were listed in 3.7. Thank you.
Thank you. And just for my clarification, are you suggesting that off the waterfront, there be no kind of regulation of light, or you mean a different standard?
I'm saying. But not to just everybody in the community change all their lights by 2027.
Thank you. I'm glad I asked.
Sorry, it's just not feasible to make people change the lights when there's no light pollution from them.
I'm sorry?
Sorry, we can't hear.
Sorry, it's me. Apparently Councillor Kent has her hand up. I don't see her, but.
I apologize for audio only, just for the next 5 minutes before I disappear, Peter. I continue. I think it's a work in progress. I think we've moved a long way. I haven't been here for all of it, so I know it's been a long journey for all of you. I still think, from my perspective, the largest issue is internal lighting on timers when people are not there, who own enormous lakefront properties, and for whatever reason, I suspect it's protection of significant assets or whatever they think. They have timers on that go all night long
5 days a week, during the week, in the middle of the night. And I know we can't regulate, or I've gotten mixed signals here on whether we can regulate internal lighting. I would suggest that, I'm okay with moving forward with this, but I do think we need to be figuring out how to deal with this internal lighting problem. Because I think on the lakes, out in the middle of the lakes, on islands, that is the number one issue. Not as much festive lighting, not as much, the outside lighting. It generally is the inside lighting that's reflecting out, such as the picture that Mr. Bornstein showed this morning. So I just want to park that one. I've mentioned it every time we've had this conversation, and I hate to see us move forward without acknowledging that this is a serious area that hasn't been addressed.
Thank you for that input. Okay. I want to key off something Councillor Zavat said, which I think is critical. And I'm going to paraphrase, correct me if I'm wrong. Move this thing forward so that we can start the real work, which is not passing this bylaw. It's educating, communicating, motivating, doing everything we can as leaders in the community and throughout the community to get people to see a better way. So I think our first order of business today is to find a way to get this thing done so that we can do an all-out charm offensive through our communication skills internally, through very timely. We've got Lake Association meetings. We've got every opportunity to get up and speak to this. I don't think there's any suggestion that it hasn't been talked about, as Councillor Nishikawa suggested. But I can tell you that if what Mr. Bornstein shown today is the product of lots of communication, there's something wrong with the communication because it's still problematic. I've heard three, I think, fair ideas that I could support if we were to make changes. One of them is to put the same, I believe it was Councillor Bosenworth who suggested hourly time limits, daily time limits on festive lighting. Was that one of yours?
My suggestion was that we include festive lighting in the curfew, which means it's only applicable to lakeshore properties.
I don't have an issue with that one. I think that might make sense. I don't have an issue with removing that sort of padded extra hour we stuck at the end of the curfew, because effectively all we've done is made it a 1 o'clock curfew instead of a midnight curfew. Call it what it is, or move it to 1 o'clock, but I don't know about that. And there was a third issue. Now, legal review was done. I'm comfortable with that. There was a third one, and maybe it was Councillor Edwards talking about a different. You know what? On the rural population,
tying it into 3.7 into the ones who have to change their lighting to apply. Rural properties do not have to.
So if we could, sorry, Councillor Nishikawa.
Sorry, I have to speak on this because we actually are doing this separately. Like we've decided that we're going to protect the Torrance Barrens area and the rural property owners in the Torrance Barrens area. So we're going to just tell them that they can't have any lighting, but you can have anywhere else in the rural areas. You can have, that's not fair. I'm just saying, and that's not even productive for the ask of the township bylaw. Because it's not lighting rates surrounding that area. It's the overall glow. So I don't know where that conversation's going, but I'm one of those rural people. And I will tell you that, and also one of those people with a proud front who had no idea. I built and designed many houses with all glass, but until I lived in one, I had no idea when I have a light on in my living room, the way that it shines up my whole yard. And then so we are very conscious that to turn off our lights, but in fact, I would suggest, and it's not just an education thing, it actually then could become something different, as in if you are building that type of housing, like all glass, you might have to deal with it through the building. I'm just saying that it's something more, but I can't deal with separating out parts of our municipality in the rural area have to abide by rules, but we're going to change them for others. That concerns me.
And sorry, correct me if I'm wrong, Councillor Edwards, what we're proposing is not that they live by different rules, but that they, I guess it's a different rule. They literally get the opportunity to phase in only when they get a building permit or otherwise touch the fixture.
Exactly,
It,
because
it
the
might
thing-
take 5 years instead of
the
3
thing
years.
is I could unscrew my light bulb,
Yeah.
put a plug in, and I could run festive lightings all over my property and cause more lighting than the other. And I don't want to see people. My next door neighbor has a porch. They have the light on. There's more pollution from the light on inside than their little porch light outside to see to get down the stairs. And that's why I'm saying it's a safety issue. as far as I'm concerned.
I'm actually, you know, I think it's not a bad suggestion that we give that segment of our constituency slightly more time to reach compliance. What I'm really frankly trying to do is to kind of broker something here that gets us to the first base, and then we can go out and make this thing happen the way it's supposed to happen through moral suasion rather than through the threat of enforcement, because I'm afraid that that's going to be a difficult challenge. If those issues, I mean, I may have done a count wrong, but in my head, we weren't going to get anything accomplished today. I'm trying to get this done so that we can move to whatever phase 2 is, you know, the assault on communication and education. If we were able to put festive lighting under the same curfew, if we were able to eliminate the 1 hour buffer at the end of the curfew, and if we were able to, and I don't know if we can, identify a segment by location of our constituents for whom grandfathering runs until such time as the fixture is swapped out or touched or rebuilt. Is there, and that would get us thing done and get us to the point where we could start communicating through our part. Sorry, go ahead. Anyone else feel that just by show of hands, or not show of hands, don't do that. We want to vote. God, no.
I would support that.
Straw poll. That a useful exercise. Councillor Roberts, you got your thumb up. All right. Let me ask the clerk. Is that something we can capture? And you've already done it. Would you like some time? We're going to take a 5-minute break and sort through the process on this one till I will say till 1/4 realistically. Back here 1/4 would be good.
She said no.
All right, I want to welcome everybody back. Apologize, it took a little bit longer. This proved to be more complicated than perhaps I assumed. We have a series of resolutions that we're going to pass. Am I going to go to Mr. Kennedy first for an explanation?
Sorry, through the chair, just to clarify in regards to the festive lighting, I actually misquoted myself. 4.1 sub B does say all festive lighting shall be turned off from 11 p.m. one day to sunrise of the following day. So that is already in there and we're good to go on that sense. So as far as the other two that we'll discuss in momentarily, that one's good to go. So we don't need to make any amendment there.
Thank you for that. So that does not need to be touched. The other two matters, I know one of them required a little bit of finessing. And so do you want to speak to that as well? Or do you want to wait till it comes up?
Sorry. Yeah, so through the chair, sorry. For the curfew section, instead of taking out the 1 cumulative hour, the suggestion that's being made is actually taking it from 12 a.m. midnight and moving it back to 11 p.m. And then that way it still allows for that 1 cumulative hour after 11 p.m. rather than midnight. So in a sense, it does mean the same thing, and it does negate the situation where if someone does turn a light on for 5 minutes in between, 12 and 6, that we start getting calls for, that minor issue.
And I hate to draw on you one more time. The third, or what is now only the second of two issues, is Councillor Edwards' suggestion regarding rural properties. We found a way to define that adequately.
Yeah, again, through the chair, 4.4D will be amended a little bit, and it will read as follows. Notwithstanding the above or any provisions of this bylaw, all grandfathered luminaires within the community residential and brackets R4 zone, waterfront residential and water body open space zones as per the Township of Muskoka Lakes Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw as amended, and then continuing on to the January 1st, 2027. So that will be the amendment to that section.
Thank you, Mr. Kennedy. Mr. Bosenworth.
Will we add a clause in that says, but you will have to be compliant if you have a building permit or replace the fixture? Do we want to add that in or not? I mean, otherwise they'll never get changed.
Through the chair, that is already in the bylaw. I think 4.4C.
Okay. I'm going to move this forward. There's a couple. How many resolutions? 2 or 3?
So you haven't made.
Okay, I had read one. And since it's already been read, I'm going to read it again just so that everybody knows where we're starting. We have to go, and then I think the next thing is put this aside and deal with the amendment. So the resolution that was previously read was moved by Councillor Edwards, seconded by Councillor Nishikawa. Be it resolved that bylaw 2023-009, being a bylaw to regulate outdoor and indoor illumination to ensure responsible lighting, the reduction of light pollution, and the conservation of the environment and the night sky, be read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed. Before we do anything with that, I'm going to read this one. So this is what we have to deal with now first. Moved by Councillor Edwards, seconded by Councillor Nishikawa. Be it resolved that the resolution be amended with the following addition at the end of the paragraph. The following, it says with the following amendments. Number 1, in section 3.7, strike out, quote, 12 a.m. midnight to sunrise of the same day, close quote, and replace with 11 p.m. to sunrise of the next day, close quote. And number 2, in section 4.4D, the addition of the following after, quote, grandfathered luminaires, end quote, within community residential R4, waterfront residential and water body open space zones in accordance with Township of Muskoka Lakes Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw as amended. So we're going to have any discussion on this? On the amendment only that we've just read to capture the 2 changes that need to be made. Anybody have any comments? Anybody? Yes, you do. Go ahead.
No discussion other than to say I am very pleased with these changes.
Well, thank you. Good. All right, then I'm going to call the question. All in favor? And that carries. Thank you very much. Anyone opposed? No, that carries. Thank you. We just signed that one. This one? All right, now we're going to go back to the first. Nope. Oh, this is just verbal? Okay. We got a flow chart put together. All right, I'm going to ask, is there any further question or debate on the motion as it has been amended? Anyone have anything? I'm seeing none. Then I'm going to call the question on the first motion that I read as it has been amended by the second motion. All in favor? Anyone opposed? That carries. Yeah, thank you. Okay, great work. Thanks, everybody. Thanks particularly to Mr. Kennedy, Mr. Pink, everyone, our clerk, everyone who threw in, because that was a bit of a panic to watch that get amended so fast, but I appreciate that very much. Thank you. Okay, so moving forward, this is a resolution moved by Councillor Kent. Is Councillor Kent still on? So then it's moved by All right, I'm going to, she said she had to leave at 4 o'clock. So I'll say moved by Councillor Nishikawa, seconded by Councillor McIntyre. Be it resolved that bylaw 2023-058, being a bylaw to amend bylaw 2017-090, a bylaw to provide for the licensing of business in the township of Muskoka Lakes, be read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed. Any questions on this one? All in favor? Anybody opposed? That carries. Thank you very much. Who did I say? I hate to have to go back to the tape. Okay, there we go. Okay. Next one is moved by Councillor Bosenworth, seconded by Councillor Zavitz. Be it resolved that bylaw 2023-053, being a bylaw to designate site plan control, Clear Lake, Knight and 2125808 Ontario Inc., part of Lot 24, Concession 8, Part 1, Plan 35R-5515, and Parts 1 to 4 and Parts 6 to 8, Plan BR-604 bracket Wood bracket, roll numbers 6-6-100, -101 and -102, be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. Anybody with comments, questions? Councillor Zavitz?
Thank you, and through you. To this point, site plan control, is this because of its, and again, 60 days has gone by. I wonder, site plan control, could that be explained to me why we back in April enacted that or recommended it? Because we're not, I thought very currently we're not doing it, are we? I mean, is it commercial?
I'm going to seek some direction.
Sam,
Who's on the phone there? Caitlin's on the phone. Welcome, Caitlin.
I'm old.
Worship. This is a commercial property, so site plan control can still be imposed on commercial properties, if that answers your question.
That's good. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, any other questions? All in favor? Any opposed? That carries. Thank you very much. Next one, moved by Councillor Bosenworth, seconded by Councillor Nishikawa. Be it resolved that bylaw 2023-061, being a bylaw to deem Lot 1 on Plan 10 in the former township of Watt, now in the township of Muskoka Lakes, District Municipality of Muskoka, not to be a lot on a plan of subdivision, May and Pecos, roll number 2-21-046, be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. Anybody have any questions on this one? Comments? All in favor? That carries. Thank you very much. What do we got here? Let's just keep on going. All right, this one is actually moved by Councillor Kent, but I think I'm going to change that to Councillor Zavitz. Moved by Councillor Zabit, seconded by Councillor Edwards. Be it resolved that bylaws 2023-071, being a bylaw to deem lot 29 on plan M-362 in the former township of Watt, now in the township of Muskoka Lakes District Municipality of Muskoka, being a lot on a plan of subdivision, is hereby deemed not to be a lot on a plan of subdivision for the purposes of section 50 sub 3 of the Planning Act 1990 as amended. Lily R. Holdings, Inc., roll number 2-9-051, be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. Any questions? All in favor? Okay, next one is moved by Councillor Roberts, seconded by Councillor McIntyre. Be it resolved that bylaw 2023-044 to amend comprehensive zoning bylaw 2014-14 bracket McPherson, roll number 2-15-015, 2-15-015-01 be read a first and second time. Any questions? All in favor? That carries. Thank you very much. All right, this one's going to get changed. Moved by Councillor Edwards and seconded by Councillor Bosenworth. Be it resolved that bylaw 2023-044 bracket McPherson, roll number 2-15-015, comma 2-15-015-01 close bracket be read a third time and finally passed. Any questions? All in favor? That carries. Thank you very much. All right, next one. We're getting there. Moved by Councillor Edwards, seconded by Councillor Nishikawa. Be it resolved that bylaw 2022-176 to amend comprehensive zoning bylaw 2014-14 bracket Beeson and Ford, comma roll number 4-3-004 close bracket be read a first and second time. Any comments, Councillor Edwards?
Which one was Terry Ledger speaking on?
The one after this, I think.
Oh, the one
Yeah.
after that? Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Wasn't sure.
So this one's been read. Does anybody have any questions? Any other questions, comments? All in favor? That carries. Thank you very much. Is I'm sorry. Oh, this is the third reading on that last one first. Moved by Councillor Zabitz, seconded by Councillor McIntyre. Be it resolved that bylaw 2022-176 bracket Beeson and Ford, roll number 4-3-004 be read a third time and finally passed. Any questions? All in favor? That carries. Thank you very much. Now, if I'm not mistaken, this one we had originally, okay, we'd originally were expecting input from Ms. Ledger. Is she? Okay. Up. Mr. Sawyer has an update. Soya has an update for us.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
It's my understanding that Terry Ledger is currently in another meeting that she was not able to reschedule. However, she has asked me to update council on this application, and I can do so now if council would like me to do so.
Certainly, please do.
Okay, so for this one in May, Planning Committee considered zoning bylaw amendment application ZBA 07-3 in the name of Blasdale and Holland, and this is the subject property that is on Omega Island, or comprises the entirety of Omega Island on Lake Rosso. And the purpose and effect of the application is to permit a boathouse addition that measures 3 feet in length and dock additions. And Planning Committee had recommended approval of the application subject to several minor amendments to the bylaw, and also subject to the removal of buildings and structures prior to third reading. The recommended minor amendments include changes to indicate the lot coverage and the maximum permitted dock width, and to remove provisions that are no longer required in the draft bylaw and to update the bylaw with the revised schedule. And the buildings and structures which are to be removed include a pump house, an entrance portico or covered entrance, and a building identified on the site plan as a sleeping cabin. So at this, so these buildings have not yet been removed. However, at the planning committee meeting in May, the applicant's agent, Terry Ledger, had explained that the pump house services the existing dwelling and had requested that the pump house be permitted to remain until the proposed renovation of the dwelling is underway. And committee had recognized the functional importance of this pump house and had asked staff if there was any other options available, which require these removals in the absence of the site plan control process. So staff have since discussed the matter with Ms. Ledger and the township's chief building official, and the chief building official has advised that removals could, in this case, be required through the building permit process. The applicants have therefore already applied for demolition permits for the pump house and the sleeping cabin building, and building staff can require these to be demolished prior to approving the insulation inspection of the proposed dwelling renovation. So if committee is receptive to this proposed approach, committee can consider approving the bylaw today, subject to the recommended minor amendments to the draft bylaw, which are again required to accurately reflect lot coverage and permitted dock width, and to remove draft provisions that are no longer required, and to update the schedule to show what is now actually proposed. So Terry is not able to join us, but I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Does anyone have any questions? Mr. Soya, we have Mr. Bosenworth with his hand up.
Mr. Soya, I continue to be confused by this application about how many dwellings are on the property. You have referenced the dwelling and a sleeping cabin. And I presume that sleeping cabin is the large building that's on the westerly side of the property. And on the diagrams in the document we have on page 155, both of them are labeled as a dwelling. A recollection during planning is that we were told that the building on the land versus the one over the boathouse was in fact a sleeping cabin. It has come to my attention, and I'm not sure what to do with this information, but it's come to my attention from neighbors that last summer, one of the dwellings, and I will call them dwellings, was rented, and the owners lived in the other one, which would lend me to believe that the way they are labeled on page 155 are in fact correct. And I guess my question is, does that change anything about this application if there are in fact two dwellings rather than one?
Thank you. Through you, your worship. So originally when this application was applied for, the site plan did show, and this is in the draft bylaw, this is what's attached there is Schedule 2, and it shows two labeled dwellings. The one on the west, so on the left of that schedule, it was determined that that is actually a sleeping cabin. Oversized sleeping cabin, but was constructed to be a sleeping cabin. And so there is only one, and at the time there was a second story addition requested or proposed for that building. And my understanding that the property had changed ownership, and the owners may not have realized that that is indeed to be and wasn't a sleeping cabin, but the application was therefore revised. That's why it's called, it's labeled as an amended application. And that addition to that building has been removed from the proposal. And that's why the schedule is needing to be revised, and the bylaw needs to be revised through the minor amendments to remove any provisions that had applied to that former request to change that or to enlarge that building. So now the buildings, planning committee had recommended approval based on the removal of 3 buildings, and that is this pump house and the building that's identified as on the schedule as a sleeping cabin, and in small words behind it, there's also wood-clad bunkie number 1. It's a square-shaped building just to the south of the pump house. And then also the removal of an entry portico as it's labeled on the site plan. And those 3 were to be removed prior to 3rd reading. And now through discussions with recognizing the functional purpose of the pump house in connection with that, the dwelling that's to be renovated, building staff have agreed that it could be required that those removals occur through the building permit process. The alternative would be for them to continue to be recommendation to stay the same, that they prior to 3rd reading. But at planning committee had been looking for some alternative options to remove those buildings, and that therefore staff have discussed this other option. So that answers your question. Thank you.
Follow up? Go ahead.
A follow-up. When you visited the site, were you able to determine whether they were stovetops in that land-based building? And then I'll have a question after that, if that's all right, Your Worship.
Thank you. Through your worship, when I was on site, no, I was not able to enter any of the buildings on site.
Go ahead. If I can make a suggestion, then that their instruction be made to the building inspector that on final inspection on this, he should have the ability to confirm that that is still the case, or that the case is they do not have a stovetop in that second building, because that is a concern.
Thank you. Sorry, we'll start that again. Moved by Councillor Nishikawa, seconded by Councillor McIntyre. Be it resolved that bylaw 2023-030 to amend comprehensive zoning bylaw 2014-14 bracket Blaisdell and Holland, roll number 4-26-068 be read a first and second time. Any comments? All in favor? All right, thank you. That carries. Okay. Just the same one, yeah. Next resolution is moved by Councillor Edwards, seconded by Councillor Bosenworth. Be it resolved, the Township Council amend bylaw 2023-030 bracket Blaisdell and Holland, roll number 4-26-068. And these amendments are minor in nature and do not require further public circulation and are hereby approved prior to the 3rd reading. These amendments shall first reflect a resultant lot coverage of 3,292 square feet or 20.3%. Next, increase the maximum permitted cumulative width of dock additions subsequent to October 11, 1988 from 61.8 feet to 67.3 feet. remove the following draft provisions from section 1. And the provisions referenced are, what do you call that? I call it Romanelli 1 in the whole. Is that consistent? That's what they're called. It's really, they are. Sub little I, sub little 2 I's, sub little 3 I's, sub 4, sub 5. Is that 4 again, or is that a 6?
I think it should be 6.
Okay, and sub 6. And update schedule 2 with a revised site plan to reflect the amended application. Anybody have any questions on that one? All in favor? Glad nobody wanted it read again. Okay, all right. And this is third reading. Moved by Councillor Zavitz, seconded by Councillor Roberts. Be it resolved that bylaw 2023-030 bracket Blasdale and Holland, roll number 4-26-068, close bracket, be read a third time and finally passed. All in favor? That carries. Thank you very much. Okay, we're getting close there. Is this another note on, this is another withheld? Okay. Moved by Councillor Bosenworth, seconded by Councillor McIntyre. Be it resolved that bylaw 2023-041 to amend comprehensive zoning bylaw 2014-14 bracket Barnett and estate of Marvin Barnett, comma, roll number 3-1-063, close bracket, be read a first and second time. Any questions? All in favor? That carries. Thank you. Withheld it. All right, I'm going to ask Mr. Director Pink if he would. We have the third reading, but I don't know if we're supposed to hold it or are we withholding it? Oh, sorry, we'll go with Caitlin.
Through you, your worship, in May, Planning Committee did recommend to withhold third reading for this application so the applicants could revegetate the front yard area, and once the revegetation plan is completed, they will return to council for third reading.
And that has not happened yet, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so we will withhold on that one. Thank you. All right, next up, moved by Councillor Roberts, seconded by Councillor Zavitz. Be it resolved that bylaw 2023-042 to amend comprehensive zoning bylaw 2014-14 bracket Harding Farms Limited and Gray, roll number 4-14-028, 029, be read a first and second time. And I see Mr. Soya is on screen. Did you have something you wish to add to this, please?
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to point out that there is a minor amendment for this one, just to correct the elevation of the flood line elevation. So it's a very technical minor amendment, but other than that, this application is just to fulfill a condition of consent. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so I've read that resolution. Any questions? All in favor? That carries. Thank you very much. All right, speaking of that minor amendment. Moved by Councillor Bosenworth, seconded by Councillor Edwards. Be it resolved that Township Council amend bylaw 2023-042 bracket Harding Farms Limited and Gray, roll number 4-14-028, close bracket. And these amendments are minor in nature and do not require further public circulation and are hereby approved prior to third reading. These amendments shall consist of adding a reference to the correct static flood line elevation of 226.70 meters above sea level, bracket MASL, close bracket. Any questions on the minor amendment? All in favor? That carries. Thank you very much. Okay. And then finally, Moved by Councillor McIntyre, seconded by Councillor Edwards. Be it resolved that bylaw 2023-042, bracket Harding Farms Limited and Gray, roll number 4-14-028, close bracket, be read a third time and finally passed. All in favor? That carries. Thank you very much. And I believe that completes the open public portion of this meeting. And so, well, I guess this will. All right. Close us out here. Moved by Councillor McIntyre, seconded by Councillor Nishikawa. Be it resolved, the council in closed session convene at 4:52 p.m. For a sub C, a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board, confidential report CCS-LS-2023-02, sale and other disposition of land. All in favor? Thank you all very much. It's great. Okay. Alex, you're heading out. Thank you for your help today. Persephone, you too.